Hello everyone and welcome back to another Train Sim World 2 news video. This one is of the Building the F7 interview, but let's get straight into it. We catch up with the Loco team to find out more about the EMD F7 for the upcoming Clinchfield Railroad. Clinchfield Railroad is coming soon to Train Sim World 2. In this classic railroading route, you will take control of the instantly recognisable F7 diesel locomotive, dressed in its vibrant and coal dust coated Clinchfield Railroad livery. We chat to James Moody, our senior physics engineer, and Callum Wagstaff, our assistant technical designer, to find out more about the creation of the iconic loco. There's a question. Callum, would you like to introduce yourself and what you do here at Dovetail? I'm an assistant technician designer. I spend most of my days putting together the locomotives and the conversion between player interaction to locomotive interaction. I put in the safety systems, the warning devices, and make sure they feed back to the player. I write what the player should do when they interact with them. Can you tell us what is unique and special about the F7? And this is what James has to say. This is the oldest locomotive we have done so far. It is by far much earlier than anything we've done in the US previously. We've done British historical content, but the earliest we have done before is the Class 101, which was from the 50s. These date back to 1949. It has been challenging creating something this old. The older something is more difficult the research material is to get. In this case, we are lucky that the F7 are really famous and people collect information about them. Just looking at the production history of when they were made, they weren't any uniform F7s that were all the same. It was like ordering from a car dealer and being told this is the 1949 model and here is the option sheet, and each railroad selected varying options. We had a challenge trying to work out exactly what were in the F7s by the 1970s. The ones we are trying to depict 20 years after they had been built, and they were a little bit run down. They had been maintained by the local shop as well. There's a lot of documentation, but very little of it agrees across the board. The railroad we are representing is famous for not cleaning anything. You can see with how they reacted with their stock changes. At the point we are recreating, they are 20 to 25 year old locomotives that are still in frontline service and hadn't been pushed down at all. They would take a set that was originally intended to be 4 vehicles together with 2 A and 2 B units in the middle, and instead they were using the A units heavily, but the B units don't have a cab and weren't as flexible, so they were traded in individually against new locomotives for credit with the manufacturer. They then put the A units together and just lashed them up. However, we have seen pictures of 4 A units running nose to tail facing the same way. And then there's another question. What is the difference with creating older locomotives compared to newer ones? And James says, what's different is the technology involved. Everything is a bit more agricultural in a way. Through the personality of the loco is in showing all of that and making it apparent to the player. If it works the same as a modern sterile locomotive, it doesn't have the personality it needs for a loco of this era. And then Callum says, we've tried very hard to capture the feel of being in this time period. Inside the cab of the F7 is quite a small enclosed cab, and there's not a lot of headroom in places or space to move. It's set very high in the loco, and you have to climb up a long ladder to get into the cab. It feels unique, especially when you stand up and move around. You experience that cramped feeling you would in real life. It should feel different to anything we've created, and it offers the player a new viewpoint. When we compare it to the SD40 that is paired with it in this route, it's going to be quite different driving experience between the two. How did you create this loco? What steps do you take? And James says, I am currently looking through a 260-page manual for the brake valve. There are so many variants of so many pieces to understand. I will put them into the computer using the simulgraph and get it to represent what I am reading. There are so many little interactions within. With simulgraph, the idea is to represent the how, and then all of the other behaviours come out at the other end. How do you collect information you need to create this loco? Callum says, for an older locomotive like the F7, collecting information is difficult. They have been made for nearly 50 routes across America, Canada and even Mexico. They all have their own differences, and throughout the years, small refurbishments have been made. At the start of a project like this, I spend a few days researching, starting with a jumping off point like an engine man's manual. I then do more in-depth searches for specific details. Rolling stock forums can be a huge help, as folks who used to drive these locos are active members and can shed light on the nuance of certain controls. If we can't find what we are looking for, the team here at Dovetail and the members of our Discord and beta forums all have great depth of knowledge of all things trains. Then James says the older something is, the more people put information online for fun. These locos are run typically by museums and heritage centres, and they tend to share what they have found because it was difficult for them to find. We also get academic projects using it because at this point some of these manuals are old enough to be out of copyright. I spent ages trying to identify if the particular F7s we are representing had dynamic brakes or not, so I was getting period photos of the route and staring at the digitalised pixels at the top thinking, is that a dynamic brake fan or not? I ended up coming to the conclusion that they have some of either. What have you enjoyed about creating this route? From designing the transitional lever, which you don't really see very much now, that has been fun to implement because it has a lot of different states that needs to be acted at different times. You have to leave the throttle off for a good amount of time before the dynamic brake will kick in. There are a lot of interlocking controls that are difficult to put together and master. When it comes to driving, there will be a nice challenge. And then James says, it's a very different driving experience. This has the old controls down from the very early days of EMD diesels. Everything we've done so far has had some sort of dash 2 controls from the mid-70s. And obviously you can tell Matt's been on this one. We have got a pink F40 here, obviously on the livery designer. But yeah, obviously Clinchfield Railroad is going to be coming soon to Train Sim World 2. Obviously do subscribe to the channel to get all the latest news on it. But yeah, that is going to be it, everyone. Thanks for coming in. You will find a link in the description to the Discord server and also our Clinchfield Railroad F7 merch. Go and check that out. It's on screen now. Obviously 10% off until the 18th of March. But yeah, that is it. Thanks for coming in, and I hopefully will see you in the next one. Pop all your thoughts in the comments below. See you all. Take care.